Podcasting with Ceri Jones.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. This week's episode, I fished Blagdon Lake, which lies in the quiet valley on the edge of the Mendip Hills in Somerset, and shared a boat with my guest who has fished the Bristol reservoirs for over 50 years. He has represented England and has had many international caps, including gaining the Brown Bowl. He tells of the history of Blagdon and changes he has seen over the years, plus how the Browns from Ubley hatchery were sent to stock the rivers across the other side of the world to the South Island, New Zealand. This lake has a special place for me, as I would fish it many times each season in the early years of my fishing journey. So it was great to be back, and especially joined by this week's guest. So we fished together in the morning, which saw mixed conditions, you can see, from warm sunshine to hailstones. But we managed to pull a few fish on floating lines, on hare's ears and yalbachs. So we decided to head in for some lunch in Blagdon Lodge. Welcome to my chat with Steve Pope. Well, it's not a bad place to have lunch, is it?
Super place to have lunch.
And it's probably, they say, didn't they, is where it all started, Stillwater trout fishing, Blagdon.
That's what they say. 1904 it started. Donald Carr came down from Scotland, from one of the big sporting estates, to run it as head ranger.
1904?
1904.
And how long have you fished it?
I've fished it since 1965.
Over 50 years?
50 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 50 years.
Have you seen any changes since then?
A lot of changes. The stocking is different now. All the fish used to go in at the start of the season in those days, whereas now it's
fingerlings then, I guess, was it?
No, they weren't fingerlings. They were fish that were reared up to around about the 2.5 pound mark. Going back to the early days, then they were fingerlings and fry. Yeah.
Because when I thought about doing the podcast here, I spoke to John Harris, and he suggested, he said, you're the man to speak to. You're like the Bible of Blagdon. You got all knowledge. There's not many people that knows as much as you. Does the family go back? Did your father fish or anything?
No. None of my family fished. I did fish with an angler called Stan Pope.
I heard the name. No relative.
No relative at all. And he taught me a lot about how to fish at Blagdon on the bank, but he wasn't actually a relative. No, he taught me how to fish nymphs, introduced me to the deal back, and he was a great advocate of keeping out of the water, not actually wading, letting the fish come in. And in those days, they actually wanted to come in onto the banks, especially last thing at night. They wanted to come in from the deeps to feed around the weed beds.
Because it's like a sister water. You know, you got Chew and Blagdon. You fished them both.
I fished both of them. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
This has got a romance. This place has, doesn't it? Like we sit in here now, in this lodge. We're the only ones in here now. Might be a bit echoey, actually, but we're the only ones in here, apart from a few cased fish. And just sit in here and think all the people have been here. How long has this lodge been here? Would you know?
Well, this lodge, it's not the original lodge. The original lodge had a tin roof. It may have been one of the navvies' lodges. I'm not sure about that, but this actual lodge was constructed in 1927. And the roof isn't original either, but the roof on here would have been actually thatched in heather.
With this?
Yeah, with a turf ridge.
Wow.
But apparently it leaked after a couple of years, so they had to replace it. But it followed the theme of the Scottish loch. It was based on a Scottish loch, Blagdon, and it had a lot of fir trees planted around it. Most of them have died back now and blown over in the gales that we had in 1987, but it was modelled on that, as was with the gillies that came down. They all came from Scotland.
It's got a nice look outside, like a Tudor style, they call it, the black and white, the beams as well.
Timber beams,
the timber.
yeah.
And I noticed you wasn't sure if they still had them, but I noticed now the rod racks. Are they the ones you're on about?
They're the ones. Yeah. The gillies would go out. There were only 4 boats originally on Blagdon, and then it was increased to 8, but it stayed at 8 for a long time. But the gillies would come back in lunchtime, and all the rods would be put up on the rack. They'd go out to lunch and go up to the pub, and then come back later on, and those rods would still be there.
But seeing that they've got an amazing fireplace, does that ever get used?
Yes, that gets used.
Does it? I can imagine this to be one of the most cosiest places to be on a wet, cold autumn day or something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, the log burner still works.
Because it must be, like I said, I only fished it probably about 10 years ago last. I did fish it. One of the very first times I fished it would have been, I don't know, it might have been 20, something like that, a few years ago. But it was a club competition. I used to be a member of Ubley Fly Fishers. And then I remember it was a tough day, foggy, moody day, calm. But at the weigh-in, we came in, hardly anybody caught fish. And we came in, and it was a big table. I don't know if it was possibly the same table there now, maybe not. But I remember then, at the weigh-in, there were 2 big browns, and they must have been £4
right, yeah,
each, you know. And I got hooked to the place then.
Yeah.
Even though probably Chew is the more popular, there's something about this place which there is a romance about it, isn't it?
Well, it used to produce very big browns. In the first year it opened in 1904, the average weight was £5.6. Now, most of those would have been brown trout. And the biggest trout was caught in 1926 in June, and that was £10.4. But there were a lot of big browns caught in the lake, mostly from the margins as well, not in deep water. They would be in the margins. The old streams and ditches, that's where they would actually congregate these browns. In fact, they had it would be a solitary fish, and it would have its own particular beat, and it would just move amongst that in a fairly narrow area, but feed very sparsely. Yeah. A lot of them at night as well.
And no pressure of anglers then, so they weren't as spooky.
They were wild fish. They were never really fished for that much. Yeah. With 8 permits issued a day, then no, they didn't have much angling pressure. And the kit that was being used, mostly salmon rods in the early days, with gut, salmon flies they used, and silk lines. You would catch fish, but you wouldn't catch fish like you would with the modern tackle of today.
You were saying there used to be a returns book then as well, bound in leather or something, was it?
I can remember when I first started, there were black leather diaries, and they were all handwritten up in copper plate, and they would record all the fish that had been caught since opening day in 1904. I can't remember what year they went up to, but somebody must have recorded them every day.
So do you know if that fish on 1926 then, the brown of £10, would that still stand now?
£10.4 here. I think there might have been another one caught more than that, but it would have been a stocked fish, not grown on from fry. And that fish was caught, well, I've got a record of that, and that was caught, as I said, in June, end of June 1926. It was caught at 11:15 at night from a boat, and we think it was caught up near the Peggs Point area, near one of the inlet channels, on a treble Alexandra type fly, because that's what they used to use. Most of the food that was in the lake were sticklebacks, and that's how they grew to such a size. And they used to use these trebles or doubles, or even salmon flies, because that's what the fishermen of that time thought they were feeding on. And they were feeding on that. They were also feeding on corixa, buzzers, sedge pupa, like the amber nymph. But that's what they got.
Sticklebacks in you now?
No sticklebacks. No, I haven't seen them for years. There were sticklebacks and there were gudgeon as well when I first started. But that was their staple diet, the big fish, sticklebacks.
Yeah. You still think there's big browns in you, but they're tough, I suppose, early on, late season?
They're still here. I think if you fished one of these big minkies back end of the season, down deep, you probably would connect with one.
Definitely a few trips on the cards, fishing the bank before the end of the season. Well, we had a great morning out there now.
Yeah.
And it started off raining, didn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
And it was blustery. But you were right with the forecast. You said it was going to lift, and it did lift. And the wind's blowing off the dam, and most of the fish we've had like 8 or 9 fish between us now on that dam this morning.
Yes, yeah, all on floating line.
Yeah.
Nymphs mostly.
Yeah. And you fished it last week, did you? Or a week before?
Last week I fished it as well, yeah. It was a fish.
What was they on then?
Well, more so boobies and blobs, unfortunately. I don't like fishing them that much, but they were still taking nymphs, and I think they were the attractors, the booby and the blob. They weren't taking that as such, they were taking the nymphs in the middle, but we were fishing a washing line type setup.
It's nice to see that they were up in the surface today, wasn't it?
Well, we could see fish moving as well, couldn't we? Even in the bright sunshine.
Yeah. I think most of the fish have come today on Hares here. So we know there's fish there now. It's nice to have a break in here now, and we'll head off maybe up the top end or around the corner, search for something else later on.
Yeah.
As regards rainbows in here, I suppose it's like the 60s, they probably put rainbows in here, did they?
No, the rainbows went in from the word go, as far as
did they?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware. They came from an estate down the other side, in Buckley, near Glastonbury. And yeah, they were put in and they grew to phenomenal sizes. The record rainbow was £8 8 ounces, caught in 1924. And that stood for a long time as well, until it was overtaken by, again,
the farmed fish.
Farmed fish, yeah. But that was naturally grown. I think that fish, again, from what I was told, was caught in the Pipe Bay area from a boat, on a salmon fly.
And you were saying it was on display here?
It was on display, unfortunately.
With a couple of others?
Yeah, it got stolen some time ago. And the outcome of it, I just don't know.
Shame, eh? There's a couple here still now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here now. And they got quite a few over in Chew, haven't they? Now?
Yes, yeah.
But
they were all set up by Coopers, the taxidermists of their day.
Yeah.
Bow-fronted.
That makes a big difference, a bow front case.
It does, yeah. The gold leaf lettering.
Yeah. I've had a couple of bow fronted cases, and it's roughly about £100 more on top of the price.
Is it?
Well, maybe more now, but when I had them done a while back now. Yeah. But it does set it off, doesn't it? Look at those two in the same case, those browns there.
They look fantastic, yeah.
So, is there there's a club, a Blagdon Fly Fishers Club, is it?
We have a small club, yeah. I'm the treasurer of the club, Blagdon Fly Fishers. We've only got about 30 members. But we have a couple of competitions a year, one on Chew in the spring and one in the autumn on Blagdon.
Do you use the lodge for meetings, or is it elsewhere you work?
No, we don't. It's the meetings we have are in the winter, and the lodge is shut in the winter, so we go to a local pub.
You've done a lot of competition fishing over the years yourself, haven't you?
Over the years, yeah. First one I think was Trawls Finnid in 1974.
International?
That was an international, yeah. I was invited to fish that one. I did well on a competition at Chew. And that was an invitation one. I wasn't actually in the team, but I was invited along. And then the following year, I actually qualified for the England team. Yes.
And where was that international?
Again, that was on Trawls Finnid.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I hate that place.
Well, I did very well over there. I won a brown bowler in 1982.
Did you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and only 5 fish, and the total weight was £2.15, so they were very small.
Really?
Yeah. On the black panel. Yeah, so one of my best achievements.
I remember your name popping up in the press many years ago when how things changed from there was the more traditional method, it was lasted for years, the pull-in wets. And I think I'm right in saying that it was from this area really, the Bristol reservoirs, which dries really kicked in. Yeah, at Graffham and Rutland, some of them started maybe about the same time, but it was a team the Bristol reservoirs, which I think you remember of them, you?
No. I was a member of the Bristol Reservoirs Fly Fishers Association team for the Benson Hedges.
Yeah.
People that really did well on the dries were John Horsey and Martin Cottis. They started it off on Chew, and it was very successful. And before that, Dave Shipman with the Shipman Buzzard. Yeah.
And there was Bob's Bits, wasn't
Bob's Bits was another one, yeah. Bob Warts, I think that was.
That's right, yeah. it really changed the whole
But
scene.
it's
then,
a different
didn't it?
fashion, isn't it? That everything comes into vogue and then goes out again, or seems to.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of washing line setups with boobies and blobs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work. Very often we go out there, they see so much of it, and then you can fish just nymphs, like we were talking about this morning. One nymph sometimes can catch the fish.
You know, fishing with blobs does work, especially the competitions, you know, and usually pulls the fresher fish. But the good thing is with dries, and nymphs especially, there's always a chance of something special, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's more imitative then.
That's right, it's a natural. It imitates a natural, and that's what you're more likely to catch a bigger fish on.
Well, hopefully we'll head off up the top end now tonight, and we'll have something special put in the podcast. We'll have to add to the podcast at the end as we come in.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when we used to always fish. We used to have trips, competitions as well up in Rutland, and whereas most of the boats would always go in the basin, more often than not for the stockfish, and they'd be your 2 pound fish. But then sometimes you had to bite the bullet and think, right, let's go for something special. And you go up the top end of the north arm or the south arm, and then you'd always get the better fish, 3, 4, 5 pound fish there, less, but you'd get a bigger bag.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, you know. So it would be nice to try something different this afternoon.
Yeah, I remember Tony Bevan in a Benson Hedges final, and that's what he did. He went up the north arm off the tower and took a chance, and it was an amber hopper and 8.5 pound brownie. And that was the best fish of the day, but you've got to have some nerve to do that, to move away from the rest of the boats who might be catching. You can see them catching, but you know if you go away, there's a chance of those big fish up the extremes of the arms.
How does it all started for you fishing?
Well, as a youngster, I was only 9 years old, and I started in a stream at Rickford, catching small brown trout, and then came up to Blagdon and saw 3.5 pound brownie caught.
Yeah.
So that I was hooked then. I just wanted to go and try it and see if I could catch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my parents brought me the tackle and away I went. And I was living locally, so I used to come up on my bicycle. So.
And you're only 10 minutes away.
10 minutes away, yeah.
And you're working for Bristol Reservoirs now?
I work for Bristol Water.
Bristol Water,
yeah,
sorry.
That's right, in the water quality department. I'm only working part-time now, so most Mondays I'm out here on the boats.
The fish now, are they brought on in Ubley still now?
Believe some are. Most are brought on at Blagdon Pumping Station, and they've also got cages in Chew, but they're chew fish. But yeah, I think the majority of fish are brought on at Blagdon Pumping Station.
You were telling me about some fish, they've been abroad.
Oh yes, yeah.
So what's the story there?
Well, the story there is that in 1906, there was an acclimatisation committee in New Zealand, Otago acclimatisation committee, and they wanted to bring species in from overseas, and they wanted the best brown trout go into their rivers. And they contacted, I believe, the editor of the Fishing Gazette at the time, R.B. Marston, who then got in contact with Donald Carr, the head ranger here, and this was 1906. So they agreed to send some Blagdon over to New Zealand, an initial consignment of 10,000, and alongside some Lochleven over. I believe they went over as well. But they sent them over in containers called Howitown cases. That came from, I think, Howitown was up in Stirling, and it was a Victorian fish farm that specialised in transporting over. And so Donald Carr got hold of some of these Howitown cases, and they actually took the eggs from fish that were over 4 pounds in weight. None of them were under 4 pounds, but they stripped eggs from fish over 4 pounds because of the quality. And these fish the Blagdon fish, original fish, were Lochleven strain mixed with River Yeo. So it was a River Yeo stream brownie mixed with a Lochleven brownie. And they, like I said, it was 10,000, the initial consignment. They were all packed very, very carefully in sphagnum moss. And they went over to New Zealand. It took around about a 6-week period. They went over on a ship called the SS Maori, and that docked at Dunedin, and the chief engineer was responsible for looking after those small eggs, and he would have to go in there every day, check the temperature, and add ice as well to make sure that it was kept at a constant temperature. But when they got to the other side, 85% of them had survived. So they were then introduced to the rivers out there, but going back to the chief engineer, he was given £5 by the Otago Acclimatisation Committee for his efforts in actually getting them there over that period of time, because that must have been really difficult to do.
That was a fair bit of money then, I suppose.
It was a lot of money, yeah.
So a lot of the fish there now have come from here?
There would be descendants of Blagdon fish swimming around in, this was the South Island, I believe. In the rivers out there, still now, yes.
Wow, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. But it was such a good strain, they wanted the best strain and the best strain.
And do you think 6
time.
weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
We know Chew especially is a good buzzer water in the spring, April time, March, April. Would it be similar here?
You would get buzzer hatches here in the spring. It'd be very good as well. Yeah, with big fish, straight line, buzzer, super glue, that sort of thing.
And you'd fish hoppers then as well?
You could fish hoppers, they would catch fish.
Do you find that they're not too far away, that the techniques work just as well on Chew and over here? Like, did they have a grenadier here?
They did. Well, if we go back to the Dr. Bell era, in the 20s through to the late 30s, there was a grenadier here, but it doesn't appear very often. I've never seen it over here to the same degree that it was over at Chew. But it must have been here because he actually devised that fly.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
He devised the fly.
That was his fly, together with amber nymph. I mean, black midge, he called it, but it was a black buzzer.
Because that was like 20 plus years ago. That used to be phenomenal, didn't it, on Chew?
Yeah, grenadiers would, but it's an orange buzzer, effectively, pumping blood to the
It was like
the
a
wings.
soldier palmer, but like an orange colour, wasn't it?
That's right.
And you'd strip it even, you get the bow wave coming after
That's
it.
right.
And
You'd see the
buzzers,
fish coming up the wave,
Yeah.
up the scum lanes, and get in front of it and pull it, and hopefully it would follow and take. Yeah.
And like this time of year now, like September, like back home with us, a lot of waters you get great fishing on daddy longlegs. They're not really switched on here much, no?
I've never really seen them on daddy longlegs on this lake, or on Chew.
Is it?
No, I know they do catch them on these dry daddies, but I've never seen them really take them as such.
What is your best fish on here?
My best fish is £10.6. That's a rainbow. Quite a long time ago, the start of the season. Yeah.
And what about Chew then?
£6.4 brownie. That was caught about 25 years ago in front of the jetty at Woodford, drifting down into Willis Bay on the Silver and Victor.
But I remember when I used to come here as well, you always used to have to fish electric engine. But I've noticed, and then we used to get our electric engines from the pub, the Live. And this morning when I was coming through the top there in Blagdon, pub isn't there now, is it? They've knocked it
No,
down.
that's gone now. That's houses now.
It was nice to have electric engine and quiet, but it was a little, more often than not, because it's got a big lake, you'd have to have 2 batteries, didn't you?
Yeah, you did to last the day. Well, for many years it was rowing boats and wooden boats as well. All the gillies had their own particular style of boat. They were all made in a loft in Blagdon, and they were built to drift. There were no drogues. They didn't use drogues in those days. It was a case of the 2 anglers and the gilly in the middle controlling the boat. But they were built with flat bottom wooden boats to drift slowly.
I noticed now that this is quite low, isn't it? It's probably one of the lowest I've seen it. Does it go much lower than this?
It can do, yeah. I've seen some pictures, and I think it was 1921, and it was just a puddle off the dam.
There's no buildings there, no? Sometimes, a lot of these lakes.
There are some bridges. There are quite a few bridges out there. There's one in front of the lodge, but it's got to go very, very low for that. There's another one up at Rugmore as well. Just a small bridge.
We've mentioned most of the time about the boat fishing. Have you done much bank fishing here?
Yeah, I think I've done more bank fishing than boat fishing here.
Is it? That's where you started, more or less?
That's where I started, a season ticket, yeah. And yeah, like a lot of anglers on the lake, we've we've all, John Braithwaite, John Horsey, Chris Ogborn, we all had season tickets initially, and that's where you learn I think you learn your craft on the bank. Fishing used to be so good on the bank. I mean, I don't fish the bank now, so I can't sort of say, but no, there were plenty of fish there. They'd come into the shallows, to feed at night, and we do very well on floating lines. Yeah.
Are there certain areas of the bank which coming towards the end of the year now? Because I gotta say, the next couple of weeks I'll have a few days on the bank here.
Right. Yeah.
Where would you concentrate?
Very much depends on levels of the lake. I kept a diary for about the first 20 years, and you get to know over time what fish as well. So Peg's Point, top level, you've got ledges. The ledges have been eroded over time by the wind, and the fish patrol along the ledges. So you need to have a sort of map or outline of the lake in your head going forward into the next season about where the ledges are in the lake, and then you'll know what you're fishing over effectively when it's, say, top level. And then it goes down another level, and then you get another set of ledges that have been eroded over time from the past as well.
Yeah.
So, and then there were like bomb craters. The Second World War, there were 2 bombs dropped in the lake.
Was there?
Yeah, 2 bombs. One was off of the dam near Pipe Bay. That one, I've seen that. That's still there because the prevailing wind is coming from the southwest. It never got silted up. So there's a very deep hole there off of Cheddar Water between the dam and Pipe Bay. And the other one was Orchard Bay. There was a bomb dropped there, and that was one of Dr. Bell's favourite spots to fish because, again, the fish cruise around the ledges. There's another very deep hole over at Buckham on the island, but I don't know why, what exactly that was formed by. But it used to get a lot of fish around there as well.
Like they call it the island. Does he actually go totally around the back of the water at high level, or is it just...
If you see pictures from the early days, there were no trees around this lake at all when it was initially built. And it was an island. Yeah, it was literally an island. You can get on there, you can wade out to it when it's at top level. But there's a deep hole one side, so it was always a good place to fish. That's where I caught my first fish there. A £1.10 brownie, on a dunkeld.
I remember, it was on the island, on the point. This one day I waded out, and I just sat down for a couple of hours and watched right next to, but as close as we are now, to a swan making a nest.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, I just sat there, and it was huge. The nest was as big as this table, Yeah. I stopped fishing. I just watched it.
Yeah,
It didn't bother me.
No, they ignore you and just carry on, don't they?
Yeah. So will you maybe do 1 or 2 days on the bank again now?
Oh, I certainly would. Yes, yeah. There's so many good spots to fish. Peg's Point, the North Shore, Green Lawn, and the different depths. That's what you've got to go by. Look at the depths that's in front of you.
I suppose as well, as the lake is rising now, like as we're looking at it now, it's very green. So I guess that when the water comes up, the fish will just come in, feed into the shallows even, where the green is now.
No, it's if the lake rose?
Yeah.
No, it's the opposite of that. That's happened I have witnessed that. If the lake comes up, particularly at the end of the season, bank fishing's dead. There's no life in the margins.
They won't come in?
No, they won't come in, no.
Oh.
That's what my experience is. They stayed out. They'll be there at the start of the next season, but if on a rising lake, we had some floods. When was it? July 1968, there were some floods, and that lake rose that year, and in July after that, it didn't fish well at all. It was fairly low, but it came right up to top level.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, what you really want for bank fishing is for it to gradually go down. Just keep going down, and then different spots fish, like out in front of the boat jetty there. There is another jetty. It's not showing at the moment, but out on Home Bay Point to the right, there's another wooden jetty about 80 yards out, and that was always a good spot to fish from the bank, but it's not low enough yet.
What do you mean by a jetty?
A wooden jetty underneath the water. There's still one there.
What would that have been used for then?
To tie these boats up to. Once this becomes all mud, this bay, The water
Oh, right,
recedes,
yeah,
you see,
yeah.
further out.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't tie the boats up because the jetty's gone out too far and the mud's exposed, so they can't get the boats in. So there's another jetty further out to the right of Home Bay Point.
Right.
For when it goes, because this lake used to go a lot lower than this, because before Chew was built, this was the main reservoir.
Right.
So it would fluctuate throughout the season dramatically.
So really speaking, ideal now. You don't want too much rain now before the end of the season for it to stay low.
Yeah,
And the weeds to die back.
that's right. Yeah, and generally speaking, the fish at the end of the season wanted to move into the banks, would move closer to the banks. You find that the boat fishermen would be going closer and closer in rather than staying out in the middle, because the fish were patrolling along sort of shallow area.
Maybe fish big minkies or something.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and, always a chance of a big fish.
And then you can, because the boats come in at sunset, whereas used to be you'd have an hour after sunset, wouldn't you? No, it's sunset.
Yes. Yeah.
But on the bank, is there a time on the bank?
And you can still fish till an hour after sunset
On the bank. That must be the best chance, really, isn't it?
If there's fly hatching, if buzzard comes off, then it would be. And again, first thing in the morning at dawn, that's another good time.
I think I'll be here next week. There's one more question I need to ask you. Where would you want to be to make your last cast?
To make my last cast, I think I'd like to be at the top end of Blagdon in a boat on a spring morning, nice sunshine, everything coming into bud, and fishing buzzers on a floating line.
Yeah.
That would suit me.
Not a bad place to be.
No, it's not a bad place to be.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. Let's see if we can go and catch a few more.
Yeah. Thanks, Ceri.
If this is your first time tuning in, make sure you catch all future episodes by clicking subscribe via the links on my website, castingwithcerijones.com, or via iTunes or your favourite podcatcher. If you like what you've heard on this episode, feel free to drop me a line via my website. Tell me what you've enjoyed, ask a question, or better yet, tell me what you want to hear more of in the future. And if you're looking for additional tips, tackle reviews or venue information, or just want to see what's been hitting the back of my net lately, search up Casting with Ceri Jones on Facebook or follow me on Instagram. And if you still want more, I'm regularly uploading video content onto the Casting with Ceri Jones YouTube channel, so just check that out and subscribe over there too. Wherever you follow, subscribe, comment or message, I look forward to catching up soon for a good fishing chat. Well, I think that's all for now, so until next time, tight lines and don't strike too soon.